The elites knew what it did. The Germans knew. The Russians knew. So out of the gates, it was used as a cumulative agent on people. I mean, let's just go back to the history from your perspective as someone trained to track poisons. But, I mean, in your research, where you discovered this idea came from.
Well, there's quite a sordid history, actually, to it. But for me, what was the most fascinating at the beginning was to learn that the American Dental Association actually was in favor, against the idea of adding fluoride to the water back in the 30s and the 40s. And they actually editorialized against it in their own journal, against this crazy idea of adding a known cumulative poison to the public water supply. And they said, and we have copies of the actual ADA journal, where they said it's going to cause thyroid and bone disorders. So people knew there was enough information back then to know that this was something that you didn't want to put into the water, and they actually editorialized against it. There was an interesting story about in Tennessee, of course, as to how this thing developed, because Oak Ridge being there, which is where a lot of the work for the A-bomb was happening, and I'm sure you probably are aware of this whole story as to how they needed to be able, because some lawsuits were being filed against the federal government by the farmers around Oak Ridge, they had to make this thing go away. And one of the
That's right, because fluoride was a big byproduct of bomb production.
Uranium enrichment.
Yes.
And what would happen?
And it got in the rivers and killed a bunch of people. And so they said, you know what, we'll say it's a nutrient. We'll say it's a wonderful mineral for everybody, just like the HPV live cancer virus injection vaccine. Merck, the same folks that brought you Vioxx, knew it was a bad drug causing problems in trials, deaths, so they just had the governor say you had to take it, then federal liability protection kicked in, but side issue, the same tactic.
Well, it's a very interesting thing how it has evolved, and at the beginning, you know, I'm a public health guy, and I just sort of went into this sort of green thinking that my colleagues in public health would be looking at this objectively the way I did, because I don't have a financial dog in this race. I have no dog in this race. I just was looking at it. We looked at, you know, when I've had to analyze chemicals, I always look at the target organs in the body and how your body metabolizes it, and just sort of back away from the chemical. And anyone that does that without any biases at all, the information is so overwhelmingly obvious that we shouldn't be ingesting unknown amounts of this in the water. It's just mind-boggling that it continues. But the process of how it began to grow, utilizing the public health system, meaning you get some very well-meaning people at the beginning who just didn't bother to really look at the tox data, the toxicology information, and they just wanted to help. And so it spread like rapidly, wildfire all over the place. But there was the whole body studies and what it did to your thyroid and kidneys and things, they just didn't do them. And in 2006, the National Research Council had a 500-page report, you may have heard.
We just lost him. Let's get him back on. Now, you notice that he's saying that they meant well. I think that's because he can't imagine that people would do evil things like this, but he admits that back in the 40s and 50s, the American Dental Association, American Medical Association said it's going to attack the thyroid, it's going to attack the kidneys, it's going to... We have the studies in the 30s. It's going to attack IQ. Sir, I was just making the statement. You're saying well-meaning people, maybe at the mid-level.
Yeah.
But you just said the American Medical Association, American Dental Association, others, the studies back in the 20s and 30s knew it attacked thyroid, kidney, knew that it lowered sex drive, all of that. And so certainly those on high knew, and despite the objections, it was still put into place. And the evidence I have is they knew exactly what it was and wanted to pacify the population.
Well, there's certainly neurologic effects that happen from fluoride ingestion. There's no doubt about it. And as to all the motivations of all the players, there were definitely some people in the early stages that I don't think had the best of intentions. I think the vast majority of the people were just that helped spread it to the extent that it is today. Were the people that just meant well. But
when the Atomic Energy Agency would take foster children and radiate them to death, they said the end justified the means to find out what a nuke attack would do. But, it shows this Malthusian / eugenicist angle. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, today, if you fast forward to today, there are people within the Centers for Disease Control, which is, I call the root of the fluoridation tree. There are people within the CDC that physically they will refuse to answer certain questions about fluoridation, because if they put certain things in writing or if they speak certain things under oath, fluoridation would roll up and go away almost overnight. And what we're working to do right now is a number of attorneys are starting to look at this whole issue, because you have to put people under oath, essentially, to get them to not be able to dance and to do this wiggle dance that they do to not answer certain questions. So we're working very hard on using the kidney angle, for instance, as one thing, but also there are some specific people in CDC that absolutely refuse to show pictures of dental fluorosis, which I'm sure you've seen, to the general populace. And we just think that that's something that needs to be
And
exposed.
that's the yellow teeth. The children even have their teeth coming in all yellow with rod holes in them.
They become yellow, brown, or white stains, and some of them actually have like golf divots, like pits in them. And it's very serious because, according to CDC's own data, about 3.4% of African Americans, around 4% of Mexican Americans, and about a little less than 2% of Caucasians have this moderate and severe forms of that. And you're basically told, if you have it, take a hit for the team, suck it up. Just, this is one of the side things that happen.
And the feds will spend millions in L.A., millions in San Antonio, and 10-year programs to force it on the public. It's because they love us and want to take good care of us, right? I mean, because they want our teeth to be good. I mean, I know you just go off the science, but this is a chemical attack, just like the Germans and Russians used it. Let's get into the kidneys, because, a lot of evidence and big studies are coming out on that.
Yes, the kidney issue. In 2006, the National Research Council said that kidney patients were a, quote, susceptible subpopulation that's particularly vulnerable to the harmful fluoride. And that was a mind-boggling thing. They actually said that diabetics, and the people listening today, if you're a diabetic or have kidney stones, any sort of kidney disorder at all, dialysis, chronic kidney disease, you name it, I bet most of the folks listening are kind of stunned to know that they weren't told by the National Kidney Foundation or the CDC actively that kidneys are particularly susceptible, and people who have diabetes, often have kidney disorders. So
they're filters, and they fill up and calcify, of course, as you know, sir. But for the public, it also calcifies out in key glands.
Yes, I mean, it deposits in your pineal gland, and it's very disturbing what it does to certain things like your thyroid and kidney. And these are glands that, like your thyroid, that control so many functions in your body. But what's disturbing to me is that there are specific people in CDC. We actually presented a formal ethics complaint on August 9th of this last year, and CDC has refused to answer to certain ones of those issues in the complaint, and they actually decided they wouldn't investigate it with the external ethicists, but they would only look at it with internal people.
The bioethicist.
Yes, I can tell you more about that.
Yeah, they're in the news today saying don't give old people health care. The eugenicist. We'll be right back with our guest, Masters in Public Health. We'll be right back. I really appreciate our guest, Daniel G. Stockin, Masters in Public Health. And he's part of this local news report in Tennessee. Let's hear this last little bit. So they want us to be dependent, under their control. Take your medicine.
Because you can't starve about and you can't make a run. Those wooden old boys raised on shotgun.
And he'll be staying with us into the next segment. All right, Mr. Stockin, again, thank you for holding while we listen to Junior. The kidneys, you're just, again, going off the cold, hard scientific facts. Please continue with what it does to the kidneys.
The kidneys concentrate fluoride about 50 to 1 compared to the blood serum. And so what's happened is that a lot of kidney stone patients, for instance, you're told to drink a lot of water to dilute the stones, not have kidney stones. So that means if you drink, say, 1.5 gallons of water a day, you just got 6 milligrams of fluoride. Well, the problem is that the very thing that dilutes the stones harms the kidney tissue around the stones. And so the National Kidney Foundation has actually recently withdrawn their position paper on water fluoridation. Most folks don't know that. and they're frantically looking at this issue right now because they're feeling kind of like, wow, they didn't tell people about it. And that's why I'm so concerned, because kidney disease sneaks up on you, and suddenly all of a sudden you have it, and you might have severe damage to your kidneys. This is this whole issue about not telling actively that kidney patients and diabetics are particularly